Biker gangs delivered a plague unto our houses. Quite literally, in fact. They're ratmen after all, and the one percenters of Clan Scryer's Outlaw Angel just showed up to run over the Dwarfs of the World's Edge Mountains. It's a matchup that certainly favors the Skaven, but execution, decision-making, and armed composition are the ultimate deciders for who wins the battle. That's why we play the game. The higher seed automatically won just for having an advantage on paper. There'd be no point in competition. My YouTube channel would be very boring. I am playing as the Skaven, Romulan Dog is playing as the Dwarfs, and Ikit Claw is my lord of choice. Doom wheels have kind of fallen out of favor in the meta from what I've seen. The low defense and huge hitbox means they can be surprisingly squishy, but it has a ton of infantry mulching potential, which is what you want against Dwarfs, alongside Warp Lightning, Howling Warp Gale, and the Brass Orb. Wanted to go for a biker-themed list in this one, because I haven't used Doom Flayers in a while, so we have two of them. Not quite the Forces of Destruction they were when Prophet and Warlock dropped, but they can still be nasty to deal with, and we have an army dedicated entirely for messing up Dwarfs. Jezzails for sniping Gyros, Poison Wind Mortars because they're crazy with their Poison Wind DOT, bunch of Slaves and Clan Rats as Chaff, and the Dwarf Thing Menace with their Armor Sundering. Yeah, they are pretty nasty. They can run over Dwarf Infantry all day long. That's how we're going to use them here. To round out the rest of the build, a couple Death Runners in the center, including a Vistran's Death Squad, and that is it for the Thagaraki. Now, for the Dwarfs, this style of play is typically the go-to when you're trying to beat the Skaven. Lots of Vanguard, lots of Rangers, spread the field, and focus fire, while Gyrocopters swappa overhead. Static defensive gameplay typically doesn't work well against the Ratmen, so when they build like this, they have a lot more agency and battlefield control, which is what the Dwarfs want. And those throwing axes from stealth are scary for any single entities like Ikit on his Doom Wheel. Buzzing overhead is the Royal Dawi Air Force, 4 Brimstone Gun Gyrocopters, and a Gyro Bomber, which actually count kills now when they land a bomb strike. Hallelujah, man, only took 4 years there. But the Gyros are an essential part of Dawi tactics against the Ratmen. Really good for tying down weapon teams, for sniping out high-value threats, for clearing out chaff with their bombing runs. They are just a super versatile pick, and they do a lot of damage. So all 3 Gyro variants are quite good here. And in the back of the map is Ungrim Ironfist, stripped naked, except for the Dragon Cloak of Fiskar, of course. And he's got his Axe of Dargo, but, I mean, not literally, he's carrying it, but he doesn't have the ability. And he has the Dragonback Slayers next to him. So, a little bit of punching power with the large single entities. Now, at the start of the game, all I can see, of course, are the miners with blasting charges. I don't know where the Rangers are. I know he has some stealth stuff, but just gonna shoot the Ekron's miners because they're the most high-value target I can go for at the start of the game. So focus fire everything on them, get rid of 1 blasting charge unit. That means my slaves and my clan rats will have a little bit more time to run interference and just be obnoxious, which is what they're very good at doing. Poison Wind Mortars are an amazing unit. Their damage value is always inflated in the post-battle stat screen because it also takes friendly fire into account, but anytime they land a shot, they're dealing hundreds of damage unit-wide, which is awesome. Getting very aggressive with the Doom Flayers and with Ikit Claw, and now the ambush has been exposed. Okay, so this was a weird situation. I just wanted to do a quick strike, scout some stuff out, then retreat to safety. But I plunged Ikit right into the teeth of the Dwarfs' firepower, where most of their stealth units were hiding. Marked by Ulthar is a mean ability. Doom Wheels have huge hitboxes, and combined with the changes to mass, where even miners severely slowed down single entity chariots, it's all going to add up to a rather unpleasant beginning for Nuclear Ned, the genocidal Ratman. Ikit from 100 to almost 0 real quick. Not ideal. Doom Flayers are into the Rangers, dealing some good damage there. That's nice. And Howling Warp Gale on the Gyrocopters on my left flank means they won't be going anywhere. It might be a nice little alley-oop for the Warp Lock Jezzails. There's a nice little Brass Orb on the Rangers in the back too. He landed a good Warp Lightning, but yeah, obviously not worth it to have Ikit down to about 10% HP less than a minute into the battle. Really not the way you want to start any battle, but certainly not one as the Skaven, who are very susceptible to routing once their lord is dead. That's a nice Howling Warp Gale though, extended, overcast version, and both Warp Lock Jezzails firing in, and I actually tried out shooting my Plague Wind Mortars into them as well. I wanted to see if I could land a single shot, if that DOT would be worth it and maybe kill a model or not. I missed all my shots there, so after that I said, okay, let's shoot into something else, and now I'm going for the Ranger battle line, which is a bit more realistic target for them to hit. Dwarfing Menace and the Skaven Slayer doing a great job clearing out the miners in the front ranks. And that's important because we need some way to push into the rear and deal with this overwhelming ranged firepower. I mean, 3 throwing axe units, 2 rangers backing them up, and all the gyrocopters. That is a lot of ways for them to deal with my single entities. They all need to be taken care of if we want a chance at winning this battle, especially with Ikit Claw already pretty much out of the fight. He just rallied, but he's in the back of the map with slivers of HP left. He's not going to be able to make a large impact on the game at this point going forward. Now, the Death Runners are an amazing anti-dwarf specialist unit. I mean, they are seriously incredible in this role. The anti-infantry, the dodge chance, the Weeping Blade, it all combines for a unit that makes it really difficult, especially for a Vanguard deployment like the Dwarfs have gone for here. They don't have any infantry that have any hope of dealing with the Death Runners whatsoever. They have to rely on Ungrim and maybe the Dragonback Slayers to deal damage to them, or just shoot them to death. They're doing a great job shooting my Dwarfing Menace right now. Those Doom Flayers got absolutely destroyed again by the Marked by Ulthar and Throwing Axe combination, and so far it has been a disastrous start. There's no question about it. Need some way to rally and figure out a way to get back into this game, otherwise it's going to be over in about 5 minutes. And as you can see, if you systematically lose every single important unit on your side of the field, it can be relatively challenging to crawl your way back into it. Doom Flayers have taken a beating. Ikit Claw is off the map completely now. He just routed. He's gone for good. The Death Runners pushed too far forward. They'll be taken down by the Throwing Axes and the Ranger Firepower. And yeah, it's been rough. It's been rough so far. But we've got ways to stabilize. Some of our most important units are still alive. The weapon teams have done a good job so far. They've dealt some good damage to the Gyrocopters and to the Gyro Bomber so far, running off an entire unit completely. And there's a full unit of Doom Flayers charging into the Rangers. And now that the battle lines are beginning to break down, this is when the Skaven can start surging forward and use those second and third waves of infantry that haven't been committed up to this point to start tying down all these Rangers. And if they get blobbed up, then the Poison Wind Mortars can rain down from above and drain their lives. 3 or 4 units hit by that, and that's dealing hundreds of damage across the entire Dwarf rear. But the Skaven rear is also a little bit exposed. Don't have a lot of ways for killing Gyrocopters quickly. In fact, the Death Runners probably the best way for doing so in melee combat up to this point. And Gyros do have the melee prowess, even though they only have 6 melee defense, to tie down weapon teams and finish them off if they're given time. So need to use something to finish them for good. That's why Viscera and Death Squad are trying to escape from the Dragonback Slayers, while the Doom Flayers and Slave Rats push forward and run over these Rangers in the rear. Keep them moving, which is easier said than done against the Dwarfs, because once they hit a phalanx, they kind of stop dead. We just saw it there with the Doom Flayers, but if they stay moving, they can dodge those throwing axes and cause some serious carnage in the back of the map. So Viscera and Death Squad running away from Dragonback Slayers and Ungrim, because that combination is pretty brutal for the Death Runners to deal with. They don't want any part of that action. A little bit of friendly fire, but of course totally worth it to get rid of the Ulthar's Rangers. And now Visceran's coming in to surge forward and save the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters. Some Clan Rats that have been in reserve in the back of the map coming forward. They'll be able to finish off these Dragonback Slayers for sure. Gonna start looking like Teenage Mutant Ninja Ratmen. And one of those Dragonback Slayers just got their head decapitated. A bit redundant, I guess. But their head decapitated by a flying kick from an Eshin Assassin. That's always badass. So this unit right here, Viscera and Death Squad, they are the linchpin of what remains of my army. They are actually the only effective way I have for getting rid of Ungrim Ironfist. And the only way we're going to kill him is if we can find a way to isolate him and goon him out while the Gyrocopters are off doing something else. So this is a situation where you want to spread the field as much as possible. Ungrim Ironfist is fully committed to going after the weapon teams alongside the Gyro Bomber and a few of those Gyrocopters, but that's leaving his Rangers isolated where the Clan Rats and the Slave Rats can chase them to the edge of the map. And that's what they're going to do now. Just make sure those Rangers have no more part to play in this battle whatsoever. That said, the Gyro Bomber is making its bombing runs now, and these can get pretty brutal. Watch the kills start racking up. It was at 16, at 40 after a second bomb. Third bomb, 60. Wow. Yeah, up to 73 kills in 3 bombs. And a lot of that was on pretty high value stuff. I mean, Viscera and Death Squad were in there. It took a decent amount of damage from those bomb drops. So the Doom Flayers are still alive, barely. Looks like the Brimstone Guns might be able to finish them off, and just a swarm of Clan and Slave Rats running those Rangers to the edges of the map. The balance board is in favor of the Dawi for now, but things have stabilized for sure. When you go for that full Vanguard Rush build, you're not really looking for a tanky Dwarf army, and so even Clan Rats can deal a decent amount of damage to the Rangers and the Infantry. And the Gyro Bomber landed at the wrong time. Vestrin's Death Squad with that Weeping Blade with their armor piercing, managing to finish off that unit incredibly quickly. That was impressive. Nice volley coming in from the Plague Wind Mortars. That should be able to finish off this Throwing Axe unit. And at this point, it doesn't look like any more Rangers will be able to do anything. They're all gone. They're all running. Which leaves the Gyrocopters. And it leaves Ungrim Ironfist at full HP and the unbreakable force that he is. So, you can see that Ungrim Ironfist wants to go after the Warplack Jezzails. They still represent a little bit of a threat to the Gyrocopters, because there are a handful of models left on them, and their single target DPS is good. So, if they all land their shots on a single model, that Gyro model will blow up pretty quickly. So Ungrim pushing forward without much support at the moment, while Natty Bubos and the remaining Warplack Jezzails fire in and try to do whatever they can. Crazy thing about Gyrocopters that I've noticed is they really don't like bleeding models. They're often down to like 200 HP, and they still have all three, which is weird. But in the background there, we just saw one taken down by Natty Bubos. They route off, that Gyrocopter routed off, and that's a pretty decent trade for both sides. I think both will take that. Now, Ungrim, because he was going after the Warplack Jezzails, and he managed to shatter them completely, is completely isolated. He has no help here whatsoever. The Death Runners, full surround off, they're all armor piercing, they're all bonus versus infantry, they all have great stats, and I think Vestrin's Death Squad have 54 melee defense, so they don't go down easy either alongside that dodge chance at 20% physical resistance. Ungrim has his hands full here, fully surrounded by assassins, and we'll see if he can avoid Thorgrim Grudgebearer's fate in the end times and not get decapitated by a bunch of Weeping Blades. Gyros finally made their way over. Nice little bombing run and some good brimstone shots from close air support will allow Ungrim a little bit more space. But the Death Runners managed to dodge the worst of those bombs, and they're cycle charging at this point because they don't want to take another volley from those. But everything being committed now, looks like the Death Runners might meet their end here. There's so much for them to deal with. Managed to explode one of the Gyrocopters, but they have been completely inundated, swarmed, and the Thwappa Choppas of these Gyrocopters look like they'll be able to finish off the rest of Eshen's assassins. The Slayer King, a little bit too much for them, but he took more than half his HP and damage to only a handful of models there, so overall decent trade for the Skaven, and it has crawled them back into this game. But the Gyros are running out of bombs. They're running out of ammunition. They're running out of their brimstone guns, and they have to commit to melee. Now, I've been saying for a while, I would love to see some kind of melee-centric Gyrocopter. I think that would be super cool, and would actually open up a lot of tactics for the Dawi as well. Something that just has higher melee defense than the ones they have, but the ones they do have are decent in this role. I mean, they only have 6 melee defense, but against Clan Rats and Slave Rats, they will do okay when they're charging it from behind, and as long as they have Ungrim as that anchor, as that anvil, and they can be the hammer charging him from the rear. And of course, Skaven don't have their lord at this point, so they don't have the leadership bonuses from him. But I think they're completely out of bombs at this point. Just a handful of brimstone gun shots left, all running low on ammunition, doing some great damage, clearing out a bunch of slaves and clans. But Ungrim is going to have to put the team on his back. He is the ultimate decider of this battle. Can the Thagaraki hordes, with a handful of Death Runners remaining, finish him off? Or will the unbreakable Slayer King prove his worth today? Not that he hasn't many times over. I mean, Ungrim, he was kind of bad before. I'd say that his low melee defense was a huge problem for him, but now that he can actually stand up to monsters and perform his role, and the fact that he's unbreakable, means that he's really not a bad choice for the Dawi at all on this patch. Now, there are some Clan Rats coming back from all the way across the map. I had to commit them. I had to make sure they ran those Rangers all the way to the edge. They did so, It's a huge map, though. This is MP Peak Pass. It's massive, so they had a long way to go. They have a long way to come back. Gyrocopters are just watching as Ungrim puts on quite the show. He was at around 60 kills or so when he was engaging the Eshin assassins, and now he's up close to 100. Doomflayers routed off. Everything routing off, and it looks like, oh, that must be the game, right? But yet, why is the balance bar still even? Romulan Dog has played this exceptionally well, but he did just make a mistake there. You probably saw it. He had 3 gyrocopters, and there were 3 infantry units that were all ready to run off the map. And instead of putting 1 gyro on each of those units to run them to the edge, he didn't do so. He retreated to go help out Ungrim and watch the show. So, that is a little bit problematic. It means the clan rats can deal a little bit more damage to these gyros, and those gyros, again, 6 melee defense. I mean, that's going to see one of them rout off completely. The other one now pinned by Skaven Slave Spears from the rear. All those infantry are gone now. But here come the rest of the clan rats. And Ungrim is on slivers of health left. So things are getting kind of spicy in the late game. Dwarfs are still in the lead. No question about it. But it is not a foregone conclusion. And at this point, with only 2 gyrocopters, he can't run all these units off the field. And with a bunch of slaves there, I'm not sure you want to spend a lot of time chasing after them because, well, when you deal with the clan rats, yeah, they're just, I mean, they just explode. So, Ungrim. Slivers of health left. 21 models left on the dwarf side of things. Don't even know how that's possible, considering they only have 2 gyrocopters and Ungrim. Whatever works. Their only job at this point is rear charge while Ungrim provides the anvil. Classic hammer and anvil attacks, which you don't see very often with the dwarfs. But the clan rats, and I was just amazed. I was amazed this game to see what the Skaven slaves and the clan rats have been able to do without Ikit Claw for the entire battle. Some of the bravest Skaven you will ever see getting rear charged by rending, flesh-tearing gyrocopters, and they are still fighting an unbreakable beast in melee combat and not running. Clan rats, the real MVP. You a fool for that one, Jay. Ungrim down to 541 HP, up to 150 kills. Just slaughtering chaff left, right, and center. Gyros the rear charge. Scurry away, beginning to proc on the Skaven slaves, as you'd expect. This could still go either way. And we're almost 20 minutes in. Double fast forward it. Skaven slaves finally decide to break. The mass rout kicks in. And Ungrim Ironfist with 380 HP or so manages to take the battlefield. 172 kills, not very high damage value on him because he was only killing chaff from pretty much 95% of the battle. Only good kills he got there were the Death Runners, but still, did exactly what he was supposed to do. Most lords would have routed in that situation with only that much HP, but he managed to hold the line and give the gyrocopters they needed to get the rear charges in and cause that mass rout for the Skaven. So, hardly a clinical strike from the Thagaraki, from my build here. I did not play that particularly well. Obviously had lots of mistakes in the first 5 minutes of that game. As I've said many times before, Skaven are not my best race. Yeah, the Doom Wheel just got absolutely shredded. I needed to be a lot more careful of the throwing axes and the rangers. And Marked by Ulthar punished me heavily. Romulan Dog did a great job of isolating Ikit and just bringing him down super low, super fast. His gyrocopter play was on point throughout the game. One of them only got 7 kills, but that was the one that I focused fire under the Howling Warp Gale. And yeah, the Gyro Bomber, 75 kills, earned a chevron as well. So patience was in short supply on my end that game. It was one thing to do some scouting and figure out where the Rangers were. It was another thing entirely to fully commit to running over the miners like it's some high-value target I need to get off the field right away. Obviously, they are not. Once I saw the Rangers were there, I retreated, but with the changes to mass and the fact that I was a little bit slow on the uptake, it just meant that Ikit Claw didn't manage to do anything. I actually think a Doom Flayer in this scenario would have probably been better. That smaller profile would have made him much less of a target for the throwing axes, and I think that just the Doom Wheel, with the changes to mass, I just don't know that it's actually a good unit. With that said, I did not use it well, and I know for sure a Doom Wheel can do a lot more than it did there. I think a Doom Flayer would have been a little bit better. Just use that speed, maneuverability, and smaller hitbox to help out. But either way, the way I used Ikit there was wrong. Obviously, if you only get 10 kills with him, you're doing something wrong with him. That was the biggest issue. In the second half of the game, I think I brought that back pretty well. Didn't give up, stabilized, got myself in a position to possibly take that game. But in the end, Romulan Dog's army, his deployment, his strategy was very good. And it goes to show that if you can force your opponent into making mistakes, and a lot of that was forced just because he was playing very well, means that you can take on some bad matchups and win. And you shouldn't just go into a game saying, oh, this faction is better than mine, I don't have a chance. You always do. GG to Romulan Dog. Peace out.